Before we dive into this story, you should know who Yakshini is. A Yakshini is considered a mystical spirit who is the goddess of power, wealth, and immense beauty. But along with these qualities, she is also mysterious and terrifying. Yakshini worship can bring about significant changes in the life of a practitioner, but the path is not easy. It is filled with dark nights, dense forests, and unknown forces. When someone practices Yakshini worship, she appears before them as a beautiful woman. Her beauty is so dazzling that the practitioner becomes mesmerized. However, if there is even a trace of greed or lust in the practitioner's heart, that same Yakshini leads them to destruction. Her eyes are as deep as a lake, and her face is so captivating that anyone who looks at her can lose their senses. Yakshini worship can bring immense wealth and power, but the price can be the practitioner's life or soul. If the practitioner makes even a small mistake, the Yakshini transforms from her gentle form into a frightening one, with long claws, red eyes, and an appearance scarier than the shadow of death. Her cruelty is such that she gradually destroys the practitioner's life, trapping them between lust, suffering, and torment, leading to their mental and physical ruin. The wrath of a Yakshini is so deadly that if she gets angry, the practitioner not only loses their life but also their soul, which becomes ensnared by the Yakshini. Yakshini worship is like opening a door. Either the practitioner gains immense wealth and power, or they get lost forever in darkness. The path is perilous and terrifying, and once the Yakshini sets her sights on the practitioner, turning back becomes nearly impossible. Yakshinis can be both good and bad. Yakshini worship is not easy. Those who succeed in it receive the Yakshini's blessing. During the worship, the Yakshini appears as a beautiful, serene woman. The Yakshini is extremely beautiful, and she reveals herself in the form that reflects the practitioner's devotion. The Yakshini can be worshipped as a mother, lover, sister, or daughter. The outcome of the worship depends on how the practitioner views her. If the practitioner worships the Yakshini as a mother, she appears as a mother and blesses them with wealth and prosperity. This form of Yakshini does not harm the practitioner. She is good and departs after giving blessings. However, if the practitioner sees the Yakshini as a lover, it brings negative consequences. In this case, the Yakshini tries to frighten the practitioner with lust and temptation. The practitioner must be fearless to avoid her wrath. If they succeed, the Yakshini grants them wealth but with conditions, as she wants to remain with them forever as a lover. If the practitioner falls in love with another woman, the Yakshini punishes them severely. This was some insight into the Yakshini. Now let's begin our story. It was the dark night of Amavasya, new moon night. There was thick darkness all around, with eerie sounds of owls, dogs, and cats filling the air. Funeral pyres were burning in the cremation ground. Under a peepal tree in the same cremation ground, the Yakshini worship was taking place. Amardeep was sitting under the tree, chanting mysterious mantras. It is said that spirits reside in peepal trees, so to protect himself, Amardeep created a circle of fire around him. Then he opened a bottle of perfume and applied it to his body to please the Yakshini. The fragrance filled the air. By the light of the candles burning around the peepal tree, biting insects began crawling on Amardeep's body, leaving him bloodied. A bottle of liquor and a live chicken were placed in front of him for sacrifice to please the Yakshini. As Amardeep chanted the mantras, he opened the bottle of liquor and said, "Yakshini, be pleased, appear before me." He then sacrificed the chicken by slitting its throat, using the blood to try to please the Yakshini. Despite his efforts, Amardeep could not summon the Yakshini. Disappointed, he returned home. As he reached home, he saw a dark shadow. Amardeep became slightly frightened and tried to walk back, but he could not see anything. During Yakshini worship, the Yakshini tests the practitioner. They experience terrifying visions and see horrifying faces. It was midnight, and Amardeep lay on his bed, deep in thought. It had been almost 10 days since he started Yakshini worship, and his body was now weakening. It felt as though all the blood had been drained from his body. His face and skin had turned pale. Amardeep was now growing disheartened, feeling he would not be able to complete the worship. Since starting the Yakshini worship, Amardeep had been feeling a strange restlessness. In the middle of the night, he would feel as if a woman was dragging him somewhere far away. Sometimes, he felt like sharp objects were piercing his body, leaving him drenched in blood. He was unaware of why these bizarre experiences were happening. For the past 10 days, Amardeep had been going to the cremation ground every night and performing the Yakshini worship until 10 a.m. The insects there would suck his blood, leaving his body bloodied after each session. Despite his relentless efforts, he had not yet succeeded in pleasing the Yakshini. He had learned about Yakshini worship from a book and now thought of returning to the library to read the book again, hoping to find the correct way to please the Yakshini. The next morning, Amardeep went to the library, borrowed the same book on Yakshini worship, and brought it home. He tried reading it again carefully, hoping his next attempt would be successful. Amardeep worked as a waiter in a hotel, but he didn't earn enough for the hard work he put in. Many rich people would visit the hotel, and whenever Amardeep saw them, he felt a strong desire to become wealthy too. He realized that he would never get rich working as a waiter, so he decided to take a shortcut to wealth and become rich quickly. Amardeep had a girlfriend named Mohini, whom he loved deeply. Mohini loved him just as much, and Amardeep wanted to marry her. That's why he was desperate to make a lot of money quickly, to give Mohini a happy life. One day, on his way back home from the hotel, Amardeep thought about trying his luck at gambling. He only had 1,000 rupees in his pocket, but he figured, what if I can turn this 1,000 into 10,000? With that thought, he went to gamble, and luck was on his side. He turned his 1,000 rupees into 10,000. Overjoyed, Amardeep felt his urge to gamble grow stronger. Soon, Amardeep was gambling every day, and his luck continued to favor him. In no time, he had 1 million of rupees. He bought a new bike, gold jewelry, and gave gifts to Mohini. Amardeep quit his job as a waiter and became fully addicted to gambling, earning huge sums of money every day. But in the world of gambling, it's impossible to keep winning forever. Once someone starts losing, they quickly lose everything they've won. This is exactly what happened to Amardeep. His luck turned, and he began losing repeatedly. He lost all the money he had won. Amardeep fell into debt, borrowing money from others to keep gambling. Slowly, his debt grew to millions of rupees. After every loss, he would come home drunk. His addiction to gambling and alcohol left him completely broke. One day, his creditor Gajodhar called him. As soon as Amardeep picked up the phone, Gajodhar's harsh voice came through. "Hello, Amardeep. When will you repay my money?" With a trembling voice, Amardeep replied, "Gajodhar ji, I'll repay your money soon. Just give me few more days." Gajodhar threatened, "If you don't return my money soon, the consequences will be dire." Then he hung up. Amardeep knew that Gajodhar was a dangerous thug, and if he didn't pay back the money on time, Gajodhar could go to any lengths to harm him. Amardeep was now stuck in a deep crisis, unsure of what to do or where to turn. His desire to become rich without hard work had turned him into a gambler, and now he couldn't find a way out of the mess he was in. One day, to calm his mind, Amardeep went to the library. There, he unexpectedly came across a book titled Yakshini Worship. He felt an instant attraction to the book and started reading it. The book was so captivating that he lost track of time, forgetting when day turned into night. When he finally looked at the clock, it was already 11 p.m. The librarian came over and said, "The library is closing now. You can come back tomorrow to read more books. It's time for you to go home." Amardeep returns home, but his nights are now consumed with thoughts of Yakshini sadhana. He starts thinking about the mysterious rituals described in the book. The book mentioned how a Yakshini could be pleased, but it also warned that while summoning a Yakshini was easy, sending her back was equally difficult. If the Yakshini was pleased, she could bestow the practitioner with immense wealth, but in return, he would have to follow her conditions. As long as the conditions were followed, the Yakshini would not cause harm. However, the day the conditions were broken, one would face her wrath. Amardeep was deep in debt and needed a large sum of money to pay off his creditors. He decided to perform the Yakshini sadhana and summon her to ask for money to clear his debts. He was ready to accept all of her conditions, as he was only concerned about the money. The next day, he returned to the library to learn how to summon the Yakshini. That day, Amardeep read the Yakshini Sadhana book even more carefully. After reading half of the book, he returned it to the library and went home. That night, Amardeep went to the cremation ground and sat under a peepal tree. From his bag, he took out a knife, a bottle of alcohol, perfume, a black rooster, a lamp, and the materials for worship. To protect himself from spirits in the peepal tree, Amardeep drew a circular boundary with coal and another one with flour. He opened the bottle of perfume, sprinkled it around him, and applied the rest on his body. He then lit the lamp and prepared to sacrifice the black rooster. With a sharp knife, he severed the rooster's head from its body. The rooster's flapping made the atmosphere even more terrifying. There was a crazed look in Amardeep's eyes. He began to sense the presence of negative energy around him. He chanted mysterious mantras loudly. As the night grew darker, the sight of the burning pyres made the cremation ground even more horrifying. It was 3 a.m., and Amardeep had been performing the Yakshini Sadhana for hours. He stopped chanting and tried to summon the Yakshini, but she did not appear. Disappointed, he repeatedly called out to her, "O Yakshini, be pleased, reveal yourself to me." But she still did not come. After completing the ritual, Amardeep returned home, exhausted. When Amardeep reached home, he lay on his bed with a heavy heart. He couldn't understand what to do next. How could he please the Yakshini? If she was not pleased, the creditors would continue to harass him for money, and his dream of becoming rich would shatter. Amardeep tried to sleep, but suddenly, he experienced something strange. He began to tremble with fear. He saw a dark shadow moving around him. He tried to get out of bed and run, but his foot slipped, and he fell to the floor, losing consciousness. The next morning, when Amardeep regained consciousness, he felt extremely weak. His entire body was aching as if someone had been thrashing him all night. When he looked in the mirror, he saw deep scratch marks all over his body. He had no idea why these things were happening to him. Amardeep started thinking that ever since he began the Yakshini Sadhana, bad things had been happening to him. Just then, his phone rang. His girlfriend, Mohini, spoke from the other side. "Darling, what's been going on with you lately? Why don't you come to see me?" Amardeep had become so engrossed in the Yakshini Sadhana that he had completely forgotten about Mohini. Nervously, he said, "Oh, I've been away on some important work. That's why I didn't get the chance to talk to you. Please forgive me, love. I love you very much." Mohini said, "I'm coming to see you tonight." Amardeep began to worry that if Mohini came to his house, he wouldn't be able to go to the cremation ground to perform the Yakshini Sadhana. So, he lied, "I'm not feeling well, maybe you should come some other time." With that, he hung up the phone. Amardeep started getting ready after taking a bath. When he looked in the mirror again, he was suddenly terrified, as he saw a frightening face appear. In a panic, he screamed loudly, and at that moment, the terrifying shadow disappeared. Amardeep was drenched in sweat, and his throat was parched with fear. When he went to the kitchen to drink water, he remembered that he hadn't finished reading the Yakshini Sadhana book. He thought he should go to the library and study it carefully. After drinking water, as Amardeep stepped out of the kitchen, a loud, airy laughter echoed all around him. The laughter was so loud that it hurt his ears. Terrified, he yelled, "Stop the laughing!" Suddenly, the laughter ceased. Unbeknownst to Amardeep, to please a Yakshini, one had to go through many difficult situations. One had to face such demonic forces that witnessing or experiencing them could drive anyone insane. If one had a weak heart, they could even die. Amardeep, driven by his greed to become rich, was playing with danger, and he was beginning to realize the severe consequences of his choices. Amardeep went to the library to read the Yakshini Sadhana book. It was already 10 in the morning. Amardeep's body felt weak because of the negative forces that had wreaked havoc on him the previous night. As a result, he could barely walk. Amardeep took the Yakshini Sadhana book from the library and went to a quiet place to read it. After reading the book, Amardeep decided that tonight he would perform the sadhana even more rigorously and would surely please the Yakshini. Amardeep returned the book to the library and went home. That night, Amardeep returned to the cremation ground and resumed the Yakshini Sadhana. Amardeep sat under the Sam Peepal tree near the cremation ground. From his bag, he again took out a knife, a bottle of alcohol, perfume, a black rooster, a lamp, and the materials for worship. To protect himself from the spirits in the peepal tree, Amardeep drew a circle with coal and then another with flour. He opened the perfume bottle and sprinkled it around himself, applying the rest to his body. Amardeep began chanting the Yakshini mantras loudly. After a while, the atmosphere in the cremation ground became even more terrifying. The howling of dogs and cats echoed all around. Soon, mysterious spirits began to swirl around Amardeep. They tried to attack him, but he was so absorbed in his sadhana that he couldn't hear or see anything. After a while, the spirits vanished. A little later, Amardeep sacrificed the black rooster with the knife and placed a bottle of alcohol before him. He applied the perfume to his body again and chanted the mantras loudly. Soon, the surroundings began to change. Smoke engulfed the area, and a beautiful woman appeared before him. But she wasn't an ordinary woman. She was the Yakshini, the goddess of wealth. The Yakshini was as beautiful as a heavenly apsara, her beauty glowing like gold. She called out to Amardeep, "Open your eyes, Amardeep. Tell me, what do you desire?" Slowly, Amardeep opened his eyes and was stunned. He had never seen such a beautiful woman before. He became lost in her beauty and began to look at her with lust. Amardeep had forgotten why he had performed the sadhana. After a while, the Yakshini said, "Amardeep, you have looked at me with the eyes of a lover, so I have some conditions for you. Do you accept them?" Amardeep came to his senses and said, "I accept all your conditions. Tell me, what are they?" Amardeep brought the Yakshini with him. With her presence, all his troubles vanished. He became immensely rich, with no shortage of money. He bought a grand mansion and several cars. Amardeep repaid all his debts, including the money he had borrowed from Gajodhar. As they say, the more money one has, the greater their indulgences become. Earlier, Amardeep would drink and gamble with borrowed money, but now he did so with his own wealth. He had completely forgotten about his girlfriend, Mohini. He was lost in alcohol day and night. The Yakshini was always with him, wherever he went. She even slept beside him every night. Days passed, and Amardeep grew physically weaker from living with the Yakshini. Alcohol and the indulgence in lust were consuming his body from the inside. His eyes had dark circles beneath them, his lips had turned black, and his body had become as frail as a dried tree. As they say, excessive luxury and pleasure weaken a person because they no longer need to exert themselves. Money takes care of everything. Without any effort, a person begins to live a crippled life. The same was happening to Amardeep. Whatever he desired, the Yakshini brought it to him. Now Amardeep wanted to get away from all of this, but he couldn't free himself from the Yakshini. He had made a mistake by seeing her as a lover instead of worshipping her as a mother. If he had worshipped her as a mother, the Yakshini would have given him wealth and then returned to her world. But Amardeep couldn't control. They say that too much comfort and pleasure can make a person weak because they don't have to work hard for anything. Money can solve all their problems. Without hard work, a person starts living a handicapped-like life. The same was happening with Amardeep. Whatever Amardeep needed, the Yakshini would bring it for him. Now, Amardeep wanted to go far away from all this, but he couldn't escape the Yakshini even if he tried. He had made a mistake by seeing the Yakshini as a lover instead of worshipping her as a mother. If he had worshipped her as a mother, the Yakshini would have given him wealth and then returned to her own world. But Amardeep couldn't control his lust and looked at the Yakshini with desire. So now, he had to follow the conditions set by the Yakshini. Until she left on her own, Amardeep would have to stay with her. Living like this, Amardeep began to feel that he would soon die. One day, while Amardeep was drinking alcohol, he started thinking about his lover Mohini. As he kept drinking, he recalled the beautiful moments he had spent with Mohini, how they used to go on long bike rides on unknown roads. Sometimes, they would hold each other in their arms and dive deep into the ocean of love. These old memories were hurting Amardeep, and tears flowed from his eyes. Amardeep began to feel the desire to meet his girlfriend Mohini, but he couldn't go to her. If the Yakshini found out that he was in love with another woman, she would punish him. The Yakshini had warned Amardeep that he could not love any other woman. As long as he followed the Yakshini's conditions, she would continue to give him wealth. But if he broke any of her rules, he would have to face her wrath. The Yakshini's anger was terrifying, and until a person was completely destroyed, she would keep causing them physical and mental suffering. Amardeep was slowly losing his mind. His patience was breaking. He decided that he would no longer stay with the Yakshini. He wanted freedom now. So one day, without informing anyone, he left the house to meet Mohini. Amardeep thought that the Yakshini wouldn't find out, but he didn't realize that she wasn't a human being but a supernatural entity. The Yakshini could sense every move he made. It wasn't going to be easy for Amardeep to escape her. He was about to make a huge mistake by going to meet Mohini. Amardeep took out his car and drove down unknown roads. He thought to himself, I wonder how Mohini is now. It's been so long since I've seen her. What would she think about me? Does she still remember me, or has she forgotten me? Amardeep's car stopped in front of Mohini's house. He got out and walked towards her house. The door was open. When Amardeep entered, the sight before him made his heart stop. He saw Mohini's body hanging from the ceiling fan. Her eyes were wide open, her tongue was sticking out, and there were scratch marks all over her body. Her body was covered in blood. Amardeep ran towards her and began to cry like a madman. Mohini, where have you gone? Why did you leave me? I love you so much. Come back, Mohini. I can't live without you. Who did this to you? Who is your enemy? At that moment, a mysterious laugh echoed around him. Amardeep got scared and shouted, Who's there? Show yourself. Why did you kill my lover? Come out. Then the Yakshini appeared. She was furious, no longer beautiful but now a terrifying witch. She said, You betrayed me. I had forbidden you from going to another woman, but you didn't listen. Now I am extremely angry with you because anyone who breaks my conditions is doomed. That's why I killed your lover. Now, I will turn you into a beggar. I will completely ruin you and, in the end, I will kill you. Amardeep was terrified and pleaded, Please forgive me, Yakshini. I don't want to be poor again. I will do whatever you say. Please calm your anger. The Yakshini then vanishes into thin air. Amardeep was soon going to become a beggar because he had angered the Yakshini. How would Amardeep face her now? He couldn't find a way out. How would he get rid of the Yakshini? To find all the answers, Amardeep goes back to the library and starts reading the book on Yakshini worship carefully. The secret to freeing himself from the Yakshini was written in that book. After Mohini's death, Amardeep was shattered from the inside. He had no idea what to do next. Now, he had become a beggar because the Yakshini had taken back all the wealth, money, and riches she had given him. Amardeep's condition was terrible. He deeply regretted performing the Yakshini ritual. If only he hadn't given in to greed for money, his lover would still be with him today. Now, Amardeep was paying the price for his actions. He realized how harmful gambling and drinking alcohol could be. His condition had become so bad that no one would even lend him money. Amardeep's throat was dry with hunger and thirst. He had nothing to eat. When Amardeep was rich, he used to waste money as if it were just a game, always drunk on alcohol. But now, he understood the value of money. Amardeep had no home to live in, so he sat on a corner of the pavement. He had no clothes to cover himself properly and was wrapped in torn, old clothes. Amardeep hadn't slept in days because every time he tried to sleep, the terrifying face of the Yakshini would appear before him. The Yakshini had warned him that she would completely ruin him. Until his death, she would keep giving him physical and mental pain. Amardeep couldn't see way out of all this. He thought of going to an Aghori Tantric, a powerful occultist, to find out how to get rid of the Yakshini. Amardeep went to the cremation ground and started looking for the Aghori Tantric. The atmosphere in the cremation ground was terrifying. Burning pyres surrounded him, and the smell of burning bodies was so strong that Amardeep could hardly breathe. He felt a mysterious presence, as if someone was following him. Amardeep turned around, but there was no one. Suddenly, Amardeep began to float in the air. He was terrified and started screaming, "Help me! Someone save me!" The Yakshini appeared in front of him and started laughing loudly. "Did you think the Yakshini would forget everything? I am a spirit, and I live in the cremation ground. Did you think you could escape me by coming here? Until you die, I will keep tormenting you." At that moment, a mysterious chant began to echo in the air, causing the Yakshini pain. She disappeared from there. Amardeep saw a man standing before him, wearing a garland of human skulls. His body was covered in the ashes of the burning pyres, and he had long matted hair and wore a loincloth. He held a trident in his hand. This was no ordinary person. He was the Aghori Tantric, who lived in the cremation ground and worshipped dark powers. Just a glimpse of him could solve all problems. It was very rare to see him because Aghori Tantrics didn't appear before ordinary people. Aghori Tantrics practice rituals involving spirits and worship the dead while sitting before burning pyres. Their rituals are extremely frightening. People feared going near them because Aghori Tantrics looked very scary. Amardeep bowed to the Aghori Tantric and said, "Baba, please relieve me of my troubles. I have made a huge mistake by performing the Yakshini ritual. Now, the Yakshini is giving me unbearable physical and mental pain. Please, Baba, tell me a way to get rid of her, or I will die." The Aghori Tantric replied, "Child, you have made a terrible mistake by falling into greed. If you had earned money through hard work, this situation would not have arisen. Performing Yakshini rituals without a guru has severe consequences. You learned incomplete knowledge from a book and tried to perform the Yakshini ritual, which is why you are suffering now. Child, you should never view a Yakshini with lustful eyes during such rituals. Doing so will bring ruin." Amardeep said, "Baba, I made a mistake. Please forgive me and tell me the solution." The Baba said, "Child, there is only one way to escape the Yakshini. Perform the ritual again, but this time, worship the Yakshini as a mother, not as a lover. This ritual is not easy. The Yakshini will cause you great pain and try to disrupt your worship. But you must not waver from your goal. Keep performing the ritual until it is completed. This ritual will be very challenging. Therefore, I am giving you locket. Wear it and take a vow that this time, you will see the Yakshini as a mother. When you view her as a mother, she will be pleased and will bless you with wealth and remove all your troubles. Tomorrow is the dark night of Amavasya. Complete this ritual tomorrow. Child, my blessings are with you." Amardeep vowed that this time, he would worship the Yakshini as a mother and not be tempted by her beauty. He had now found a way to escape the Yakshini. He would perform the Yakshini ritual again and end all the problems in his life. How will Amardeep complete the Yakshini ritual when the Yakshini is so angry? The terrifying form of the Yakshini will be revealed in the next part. The dark night of Amavasya had arrived. On this night, people worship dark powers. It is a terrifying night because evil forces become stronger, and spirits target humans. Animals in the cremation ground keep guard, because these evil forces become visible. Dogs and cats begin to cry in fear during the middle of the night. Amardeep, determined to solve all his life's problems, went to the cremation ground to perform the Yakshini ritual. It wasn't going to be easy because the Yakshini would try to disrupt his worship. No matter how many obstacles or difficulties came his way, Amardeep was determined not to back down. He decided to follow the path shown by the Aghori Baba. On the night of Amavasya, Amardeep went to the cremation ground with all the ritual materials: a live black rooster, a bottle of alcohol, a sharp knife for sacrificing the rooster, and a bottle of perfume. He also took rangoli powder to draw a circle. Amardeep drew a circle with rangoli powder under a peepal tree and sat inside it. He began chanting the mysterious mantra. The atmosphere grew more terrifying as the mantra echoed. After a while, Amardeep took out the black rooster from his bag and sacrificed it to please the Yakshini. He then applied some perfume to his body and sprinkled it around him. The fragrance attracted the spirits in the cremation ground toward Amardeep. Amardeep became fully immersed in his ritual. After some time, mysterious forces began to swirl around him, trying to harm him. But they were unsuccessful because the locket given by the Aghori Baba protected Amardeep from these evil forces. Eventually, these spirits vanished. Amardeep continued chanting the mantra loudly, making the atmosphere even more terrifying. After a while, the environment began to change. The Yakshini appeared and tried to disrupt Amardeep's ritual. But Amardeep didn't give up. He remained fully focused on worshipping the Yakshini as a mother. Because of this, the Yakshini couldn't harm him. After some time, the Yakshini calmed down and told Amardeep to open his eyes. Slowly, Amardeep opened his eyes and saw the Yakshini standing before him. This time, Amardeep kept his eyes down while speaking because if he looked into the Yakshini's eyes, he would fall for her again. So, he bowed to her and said, "Yakshini Ma, please forgive me. You are my mother. Please make everything right again. I was greedy and looked at you with lust. Please forgive me." The Yakshini said, "By worshipping me as a mother, you have pleased me. Ask for anything you want." Amardeep said, "Ma, please bring back my lover, Mohini. I don't want anything else. I don't need wealth, fame, or luxury. I will work hard and try to become rich with my own earnings. I don't need expensive cars or mansions. I just want my lover back because I can't live without her." The Yakshini restored everything to the way it was and brought Mohini back to life. She blessed both Mohini and Amardeep before vanishing. Amardeep was overjoyed to have Mohini back and vowed never to drink alcohol or gamble again. He decided to work hard and become rich through his own efforts. After that day, Amardeep started working at a hotel and lived happily ever after with Mohini. Friends, we hope you learned something valuable from this story and that you never look for shortcuts to get rich. Trust in your hard work and keep moving forward. Don't try any of the rituals shown in this video at home, as they could be dangerous for you and your family. So, friends, this was our story about the Yakshini ritual. We hope you liked the story and learned something important from